Back off, I'll take you on. Headstrong, I'll take on anyone. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies. Special guest, Tim Davis. This is the podcast where all three of us went and saw a movie at our local Regal Cinema Theater. And now we're going to talk about it in the parking structure next to the theater in Matt's Honda Pilot. We're going to talk about such things as, should you see this movie? Should you not see this movie? Should you wait for streaming? Do you absolutely have to see it in theaters? Should you snack during it? Or do you need to pay super attention? Can you bring your kids? Should you bring a date? Should you go alone? I don't know. We're going to try to talk about this stuff. I'm Todd Domer.
And I'm Matt Malloy. And yes, we saw a movie. This movie is called The Equalizer 3. And it has some people in it that you might know. Tim, tell us about that.
Well, this being the third of a trilogy, Denzel Washington is back as our title character, the Equalizer himself. The only other names in this that people would recognize is Dakota Fanning, who has starred with Denzel many years ago in a different movie, Man on Fire, which is also an excellent movie, in the vein of the Equalizer in a bit. And also in a smaller role, David Denman is in it. People may not know the name, but he's mostly known as Roy from The Office, as one of her fellow agency members. And that is about it.
That is about it.
For a cast list that is recognizable.
Yes.
More recently, we remember him as one of the dads from Joyride.
Correct. He did show up in that. That was true.
Yes. So, thank you, Tim. What is this movie about? Well, this is the third Equalizer movie where we follow Robert McCall trying to make things right for someone, somewhere, who deserves it in his mind, and he does that mainly by killing people. This movie's no exception. He does kill some people. In fact, the beginning of the movie kind of opens up with, we are led to this house where everyone has been killed in some way and is laying in their own blood, and we find out he was to blame for that, and he was there again trying to equalize something, and we learn much later what that was, but I won't spoil that for the purposes of this movie, but I will say that he gets a little sloppy at the end and he gets shot in the back. And so then he ends up, he's in Italy, by the way. Sicily. Yes, to be very precise. So he ends up, recuperating in the area and in this little town. And he starts to really enjoy being in the little town. He starts to know the people. There's a doctor who takes him in, who everyone loves in the town and all that. And then we find out there's a dark force at work in the town. This group of people is trying to kind of squeeze people and get them to give up their houses, give up their property so that they can buy it on the cheap, I guess, and flip it and turn it into hotels and things like that. So Robert McCall, of course, realizes that this is not something he can abide, as he's really enjoying the people of the town, and he decides to equalize once again. And this movie is about that happening, and then we overlay that on the fact that the CIA gets involved. He kind of tips them off to some other nefarious things happening, and the CIA is involved. That's where Dakota Fanning's character comes in. He ends up calling her on the phone and actually tipping her off. She works at like a financial bad stuff unit at the CIA.
Yeah, that's right.
And so they're on scene too, and they end up, doing kind of the heavy lifting of wrapping things up. So that's kind of the basic plot of the movie, without spoiling what happens, as we don't like to do on this podcast.
True.
But what we do like to do is start off with Todd's gut reaction. So Todd, give it to us. Equalizer 3, The Equalizer 3. How do you feel?
Gut reaction is this was an average to below average movie. there's nothing special about this movie. Like, It was definitely not the best installment of this franchise. I don't really think it needed a third one, and it kind of just felt like there was no real reason to do this movie, and it's not like they added to the others in a spectacularly good fashion, in my opinion. Everything was a little bit slower action-wise this movie. Like, I don't know if Denzel just can't keep up anymore or whatever, but it was a lot of catering to Denzel's oldness, I thought. And also, like, I mean, not for nothing, but I mean, you get Denzel. It's not like his acting in this movie is stellar. He's like this in every movie. You get Denzel. And then I thought Dakota Fanning was horrible. Like, I could not buy into her character. I did not believe any kind of edge that she was trying to bring. Every scene where she was trying to act tough was uncomfortable to me. And I don't know why. I just don't think she brought it. I don't think it felt really phoned into me. I don't know. The story is very basic. It just nothing. I really don't feel like there was a benefit to making this movie. Like, it's not like it was even a great bookend to this trilogy. I thought, like, I don't know. Maybe I was looking too forward to it. I don't know. I just felt like the action was okay, but like too existent. It was there. I didn't feel like it was that good. I felt like they had to cater to Denzel. You know, everyone who was not an American in this movie, I thought acted very well. Like, you see, there's a lot of Italians and I don't know, probably more of that sector of the world all throughout this movie. I thought all those people did much better than the people we were presented with who were supposed to carry the movie. I just wasn't a fan. There's not many great or good things I can say about this movie. Some of the action was okay, I guess. You know, Denzel's Denzel. He's going to be Denzel in every movie he's in at this point. So you can bank on that, I guess. But as far as story and everything coming together to be a good movie, it just wasn't there. Like, they kind of shoehorned it to tie into the others, even though I didn't, like, really feel like it was a necessity to. I don't know, just didn't feel it. Like, that's where I'm gonna land. I didn't like it, didn't feel it. It wasn't really worth our time, I felt. But, you know, just another movie that came out I'm leaving just going, that's where I'm at. Tim?
Well, I will start my review, but first let me rearrange my napkins just so before we get started here. That's a reference for those who know the Equalizer.
Yeah. You'll get it if you've seen these movies.
I will start off by saying I am unabashedly a Denzel guy, and I tend to enjoy his movies probably more than they deserve. This movie I did enjoy. I did not love it. I thought, as far as the Equalizer movies go, it is the weakest of the three. I think the arc was supposed to be he's trying to find peace finally. And of course, there are obstacles to getting to that peace. And this movie was kind of almost one big training montage to get to the final scene. Sprinkled in amongst him meeting all the townsfolk, but he was, first he has a cane from the injury, then he's walking upstairs more and more, and he's just slowly building his case to go after these guys. And it felt like one big training montage. And I get why they did it that way. It was to make, humanize the town and make you realize why he cares and why he's going to go after these guys so brutally. But it's like, but we know what he does at this point. As soon as the bad guys showed up, you're just like, well, we know what's going to happen here. I mean, and you want the bad guys to get it. They always play bad guys. They always pick really good bad guys that you just want to see get taken out. But what I feel like some of the satisfaction of these movies is the inventive ways he kills people, the stopwatch gimmick, which I feel like they did not use very much in this movie. And I just feel like they lost some of the stuff that made the first two really solid. And they went more stylized on this one and almost kind of had him be like a ghost or a horror movie villain, killing people in the dark or out of corners and jump scares for the bad guys. And so that part was a little underwhelming, I thought. So, but I still thought Denzel carried it like he always does, and he's Mr. Charisma, although in these movies he's a bit more I guess, restrained, because Robert McCall is a restrained fellow. I had no problem with Dakota myself. I thought she was fine. And then I really love how they tied her in, to be honest. That really worked for me. I thought that was a very satisfying tie-up for me, without giving it away. Yeah, is this one necessary? No, but if it's the end of the franchise as it stands now, I'm okay with that. But the first two, I think, are much better. And that's where I'll stand. Matt?
Well, I haven't seen the first two.
Oh,
so,
I was wondering if you had or hadn't.
Oh, I recommend the first one very much.
So I thought about watching it today, but the first one I would have had to pay money to see it, and so I skipped it.
I don't own it either. I should.
But I kind of thought, I kind of am with you, Todd. I think I felt like this was an average movie. I do like Denzel. You're right. He acts like himself at this point. And
yes,
we know what he acts like.
You go to a Denzel movie, you're getting Denzel.
But that doesn't bother me at all.
No,
because I'm fine with that.
Well, even a Denzel being Denzel is probably still better than half of what we're seeing in movies in general. So, like, I don't mean that as Denzel being Denzel.
No, I know
that's
what you mean.
bottom of the barrel.
Right.
But you're not seeing anything new nowadays of, like...
But this isn't... I would say this isn't his best work either. Yeah.
No, but, I mean, I would venture to say you could list the last 10 movies Denzel been and been like...
True.
It's Denzel playing Denzel being Denzel.
Correct.
Like,
yes. So...
But anyway, yeah.
Still good.
Still good.
Yeah. So I would say that was an enjoyable part of the movie. I like watching him. He's so charismatic and
very much.
I'd watch any movie with him, really. That being said, I thought this movie was too much of a slow burn. You get kind of one little action sequence at the beginning, and then it's really few and far between as we sort of spend a lot of time in this small town.
I will interject and say that the first two are like that as well.
Okay, fair enough.
They like to establish the evilness of the bad guys and why Denzel's trying not to be an equalizer, but he just can't help himself.
He can't help but equalize. Denzel's looking pretty old at this point, which is probably because
70.
Which is probably because he is old at this point. And I thought that they kind of were trying to make a nod at that in this movie. Is like
so
the character's old too, and he's sort of slowing down. And yeah, he pulls it together and pulls off some dramatic things, but he got shot in the back by a little kid and had to take his time recovering from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, just in general, I thought that the story was a little bit too slow for me. It's a satisfying story at the end, but it's slow to get there, and it's not too intricate. It's like, I think, Todd, you said it's a pretty simple story.
Revenge story. It's not hard.
So, should you see it? Well, if you like Denzel, you probably should see it. Aside from that, I don't know if you need to. I didn't feel like I needed to see the first two either to enjoy this as much as I did anyway.
I think you would enjoy one.
Yeah. I think there's a little tie-in or callback in there near the end that I didn't get because I haven't seen the other two. But, I think, this is an average film, and I think it's kind of take it or leave it for me. So that's what I'll say about that.
Fair. So how many what's the thing that I'm thinking of? How many corkscrew deaths would you give this? As I believe, I could be wrong. I cannot remember the 1 and 2, but there is a corkscrew death in each movie, I believe.
Correct. That's kind of one of his trademarks. Yeah.
So, 0 being horrible and the worst, because then you got no deaths and what's happening.
You can't even open a wine.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. 5 being the best, because then you got 5 open bottles of wine and 5 dead people. So I guess all that wine's yours.
Right.
So let's start with Matt.
Well, like I said, I thought this was a pretty average movie, so I'm going to go with 2.5 corkscrew deaths, maybe 2 deaths and a severe maiming with the corkscrew. I'm not sure what happens to the third bottle of wine there, but
Yes.
I'm going to go with 2.5 and right down the middle for me.
Nice. Tim?
That's funny. That's exactly where I landed as well. Which for me, that's pretty low for a Denzel movie, but 2.5 because this one is the least of this series. What I thought this one really lacked, which is a hallmark of the series for me, was the super tense sit down with the villain, where Denzel's character basically says, "I'm on to you, and you can straighten yourself up now or later." But we got that scene with the main character's brother, I would say. It was still good, but like I feel like that's one of the best scenes in each movie is where he basically sits down, presents himself, and says, "This is your chance to not let me do this to you." And I feel like those scenes carry these movies, and this one, while it was satisfying to beat up his little brother, it wasn't as epic as the other two. Todd.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower than you guys. I'm at a 2. Both the first movie and the second movie were kind of about like Robert having his little niche in the world and then calamity coming down. And the more interesting part about this movie is that that's not necessarily happening in this movie. You find out eventually that the start of the movie, the whole mayhem and stuff like that, is kind of a mission he was on. So I'm more curious about the whole setup about that mission.
That's
like,
fair too. Yeah.
because that's he's helping out someone from the States. That's
Right.
the Equalizer. Like, so I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. But you get sidetracked onto this story that feels done 2 different times before. Of I found a little piece in the world. Oh, it's
I don't wanna
jeopardized.
have to do this anymore.
Oh,
Yeah.
Here I go to unjeopardize it. Like, so, Denzel is Denzel. He's gonna be Denzel, and he was fine. But I felt like if you're gonna, especially since they never really had a plan to do a third one, like,
No,
if you're gonna come out and do a third one after 1 and 2, obviously 1 was better than 2 in my opinion, but they were both
really solid.
Then it's got to start with a solid story to come back and do a third one. Like, and I don't feel like they had their ducks in the row
No, I
for
agree
this
with
one.
you.
Someone was like, "Hey, what about a third?
Hey, you wanna do a third
Equalizer?"
one?
It was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, why not?"
Yeah.
And that's
And
it.
Denzel
Like,
probably said, "Well, I don't know how much more I have in me."
right. So I mean, for me, like, to approach this kind of stuff, if you're hopping onto a franchise that wasn't never supposed to be a franchise, and it's
Right.
been some time since the second one, like, you got to have a
Right.
really good story and everything ironed out. I just really don't think they did. Like, it just kind of felt like it came together while they were filming it.
I think that's a
So,
fair point.
yeah, that makes it a 2. Could have been better. Kind of a weak point to end the trilogy on, but here we are.
Yep.
Here we are. All right. Well, any last thoughts?
And maybe it was because of Dakota Fanning, but at times I felt this was like really just trying to capture Man on Fire vibes.
Sequel almost.
Yeah.
In a
I was
weird
like,
way.
you guys this feels like you're trying to capitalize on that. Like, feels almost like the next installment of.
I liked their scenes
Man on
together.
Fire.
I thought those were some of the more interesting back and forths. But again, it's supposed to be more McCall challenging the villain almost, and that's we needed more of that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will just say that there's a certain scene where a minor character is found in her house wearing no pants. And I just have to say, there's no reason for her to have no pants on in that scene.
That's fair.
That was really strange
Yeah,
to
that
me.
was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially because I didn't notice that until she stood up, and I was like, "Hey, where are your pants?"
Right.
Right.
Yeah. That
Right.
was odd.
Just a little nugget for you here on the Matt and Todd Go to the
Yeah.
Movies podcast.
Yeah, we're not anti-pants here.
No.
So
Right.
It's just it didn't
there
make sense.
are appropriate times for pants.
Sure.
And we are
And no
supporters of that
pants.
time.
Yeah.
There are
Yes.
appropriate times
Sure.
for no pants. It just felt like they got their wires mixed up on this
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, no
They
pants.
thought it was a no
It
pants
was-
time when really it was a
It
pants
was a
time.
pants time. Well, anyway, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of Matt and Todd Go to the Movies, where we reviewed the movie The Equalizer 3, and we gave it an overall rating of 2 1/3 corkscrew deaths out of 5, which is a little bit below average. I think unless you're a big Denzel fan, you probably could skip it, or you're a big fan of a
completionist.
Correct. You're a big fan of the Equalizer movies,
or the old TV show.
The old TV show, or all of the above. Then you catch it on streaming or something, and
eventually.
And you can check that off your list. Thank you to listeners for listening, downloading, subscribing, etc. Keep doing all those things, and we will see you next time.
Da 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 da
Da da
da da da.
da da da.